For the first few seconds, listen carefully, because toxic people don't usually attack your thinking directly. They don't stand in front of you and say, "I am going to damage your mind." Instead, they change the environment in which your mind operates. And when the environment is unhealthy, even a strong mind begins to shrink. Human thinking needs safety, clarity, and respect. When those are missing, the brain switches from thinking mode to survival mode. This shift is subtle, but it is devastating over time, and toxic people are experts at keeping you in that survival state. One of the first ways they do this is by planting doubt in your own perception. Not through big lies, but through small daily comments. You're overreacting. You're too sensitive. You always think too much. Each sentence looks harmless, but together they weaken your trust in your own thoughts. When a person hears these messages repeatedly, the brain starts hesitating before forming opinions. Instead of thinking freely, it asks, "What if I'm wrong again?" This hesitation kills clarity. Eventually, you start outsourcing your thinking to the very person who is confusing you. Another powerful method toxic people use is emotional pressure replacing reason. Healthy conversations are based on facts, calm, tone, and mutual understanding. Toxic interactions are filled with guilt, fear, sarcasm, or silent punishment. Your brain cannot analyze properly when it is emotionally threatened. Neuroscience shows that stress hormones reduce the brain's ability to reason deeply. So when someone constantly keeps you anxious, offended, or defensive, your intelligence doesn't disappear. It just goes offline. You are reacting, not thinking. Over time, your brain associates thinking with pain. Every time you express an idea, it leads to conflict or ridicule. So the brain learns a shortcut. Stay quiet, stay simple, stay safe. This is how intelligent people slowly become mentally silent around toxic individuals. Another silent damage happens through constant interruption and dismissal. You begin a thought, and they cut you off. You explain something, and they mock it before it's finished. This trains your mind to stop thinking requires completion. When your thoughts are always interrupted, your brain gets used to unfinished ideas. This leads to scattered thinking, poor focus, and mental exhaustion. It is not that you can think it is, that your thoughts are never allowed to land. Toxic people also confuse thinking by creating mental noise. They contradict themselves, change rules, and shift expectations. Yesterday you were appreciated. Today you're criticized for the same behavior. Your mind stays busy, trying to decode them. When the brain is constantly trying to predict emotional danger, it has no energy left for creativity or logic. Your thinking becomes reactive instead of reflective. You start thinking about them, not about life. This is one of the most overlooked forms of mental theft. Another common tactic is disguised advice. Toxic people often present control as concern. "I'm just trying to help you. I know what's best for you. You wouldn't understand." Slowly, your independence of thought erodes. Instead of asking, "What do I think?" you begin asking, "What would they approve of?" This external validation becomes your mental compass. And when your compass is owned by someone else, your direction is never truly yours. Comparison is another quiet weapon. They casually mention others who are smarter, more successful, or more disciplined than you. Not to inspire, but to shrink you. This keeps your mind occupied with self-judgment, instead of problem-solving. A mind busy defending its worth cannot think freely. Confidence is not arrogance. It is mental stability. When confidence is attacked daily, thinking becomes fragile. You don't explore ideas, you guide yourself. Toxic people also distort silence. Healthy silence is space for reflection. Toxic silence is punishment. When silence becomes threatening, your mind stays noisy. You overthink what you said, what you should have said, and what might happen next. This constant internal noise leaves no room for deep thought. Eventually, thinking feels tiring instead of exciting. That's not laziness, it's mental fatigue. From a psychological point of view, prolonged exposure to toxic behavior creates learned helplessness. You stop trying to reason because reasoning never changes the outcome. You stop explaining because explanations are ignored, so your mind reduces effort to conserve energy. Philosophically, this is dangerous. A human being is not just a body that works. It is a mind that questions. When questioning dies, growth dies. And toxic people tend to want growth. They want predictability. From a social perspective, toxic environments reward conformity, not clarity. People who think deeply disrupt shallow power structures. So thinking is subtly punished, while obedience is rewarded. Over time, you unconsciously adapt. Religious and ethical traditions across the world emphasize reflection and wisdom, but wisdom cannot grow in humiliation. Even sacred texts warn against keeping company with those who darken the heart, because mindset spreads faster than advice. Real-life examples are everywhere. Employees feel sharp at home but dull at work. Students feel capable alone but confused around certain peers. It's not intelligence that changes, it's psychological safety. Now here's the most important truth so far. Your ability to think is not gone. It is suppressed. And suppression always feels like loss until the pressure is removed. The damage didn't happen overnight, so recovery won't either. But the mind has an incredible ability to restore itself once the environment improves. The first sign of healing is not brilliance, it is calm. Calm is where thinking returns. Awareness is already a form of recovery. The moment you realize, this isn't me, your mind begins separating from the toxicity. You start observing instead of absorbing. An observation is the doorway back to clear thought. Now that you understand how toxic people slowly weaken your ability to think, the real question becomes this. What do you do without becoming cold, aggressive, or completely isolated from the world? Because walking away from every difficult person is not always possible, and becoming emotionally hard only creates a different kind of damage. The first positive adaptation is learning mental distance, even when physical distance is limited. Mental distance means you stop giving every word equal importance. You listen, but you don't absorb. This single skill protects your thinking more than arguments ever will. When a toxic person speaks, their words often come from insecurity, not truth. Once you see this, you stop responding emotionally. You begin observing patterns instead of reacting to statements. Your mind moves from chaos to analysis. Another powerful adaptation is slowing down your responses. Toxic people thrive on speed and pressure. They push for instant answers, instant decisions, instant reactions. Slowing down interrupts their control over your thinking. When you pause before replying, your brain re-enters thinking mode. Even silence becomes a form of intelligence. You no longer rush to explain yourself. And this alone rebuilds confidence in your own judgment. Protecting your thinking also means choosing where to explain and where to stop. Not every misunderstanding deserves clarification. Some people don't want clarity. They want control. Knowing the difference saves mental energy. From a psychological angle, setting limits restores. Every time you don't engage in a draining conversation, your mind learns that it is safe again. Safety is not comforted, it's stability. And stability is where reasoning becomes sharp. Another quiet but powerful adaptation is rebuilding thinking in safe spaces. Time alone, journaling, walking, or simple reflection rewires the brain. Your mind remembers how it used to connect ideas without fear. These moments may feel small, but they are restorative. Socially, it's important to have at least one environment where your thoughts are respected. One person who listens without mocking or correcting. This doesn't increase ego, it repairs thinking. Healthy minds need mirrors, not judges. Philosophy teaches that wisdom begins with self-awareness. You don't need to defeat toxic people in debate. You only need to stop letting them live rent-free in your head. Freedom of thought is an internal decision first. Logically speaking, engaging emotionally with irrational behavior is inefficient. It drains effort without improving outcomes. Once your mind accepts this, it stops overworking. You begin choosing silence strategically, not fearfully. Many people confuse kindness with availability. You can be respectful without being mentally accessible. You can listen without agreeing, This balance protects thinking while preserving humanity. One of the most healing shifts is changing how you measure yourself. Stop judging your intelligence by how you perform under pressure. A calm mind thinks better than a brilliant but anxious one. Your true thinking capacity shows in peace, not conflict. Religious wisdom often emphasizes guarding the heart and mind. Not everyone deserves access to your inner world. This is not pride. It is responsibility. You are accountable for what shapes your thoughts. Over time, as toxic influence reduces, something interesting happens. Your curiosity returns. You begin asking questions, again not defensive ones, but curious ones. This is a sign your thinking is healing. Another sign is mental quiet, not emptiness, but clarity. Thoughts become organized, slower, and deeper. You stop replaying conversations in your head. You also regain the ability to disagree without fear. Disagreement no longer feels like danger. It becomes a difference of perspective. This shows that your mind is no longer in survival mode. Importantly, don't expect instant sharpness. Recovery is gradual. At first, you'll simply feel less tired. Then you'll feel clearer. And only then will creativity and deep thinking return. One of the most empowering realizations is this: you were not losing your mind. Your mind was protecting itself. Silence, hesitation, and withdrawal were signs of overload, not weakness. When you stop blaming yourself, thinking strengthens naturally. Self-respect rebuilds intellectual confidence. You start trusting your perceptions again, and trust is the foundation of all thinking. Over time, toxic people may notice a change. They may say you've become distant or different. What they actually mean is that you're no longer mentally available for manipulation. This is growth, even if it's uncomfortable. The goal is not to become superior. It is to become clear. Clear thinking leads to better decisions, healthier relationships, and inner peace. Nothing threatens toxicity more than calm clarity. In real life, people who protect their thinking live longer, healthier mental lives. They make fewer impulsive decisions. They recover faster from stress. They remain open without becoming naive. Your mind is one of your greatest responsibilities. Where you place it, who you expose it to, and how you protect it matters deeply. Toxic people don't just affect emotions. They shape thinking patterns. The good news is this: thinking is resilient. Once the pressure lifts, it heals faster than you expect. Clarity returns when respect returns. So if you feel mentally sharper alone than in company, pay attention. That feeling is guidance. Not everyone deserves access to your thoughts, and protecting your thinking is not selfish, it is necessary. Your ability to think deeply, clearly, and independently is still intact. It was never destroyed. It was just waiting for space. And the moment you claim that space, your mind comes back to life.